What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of the Cherry Pickers. Jim Bailey here with Gary Altizer. We are in week 16. We are going to be going over all things NFL this week with NFL bets, our best bet picks, some teaser picks. We're going to go over the Steelers game and the Browns game coming up as well as the Monday night, Sunday night games. We are going to start with that Steelers win last night against the Bengals. They played lights out. The Bengals just didn't look like the same team last night. That's not the same team that we've saw the last few weeks where Jake Browning has looked great. That Steelers front just dominated that Bengals offensive line. Rudolph had good numbers, but he really didn't have to do much. He had a slant pass that went 80-something yards for a touchdown where he kind of just dumped it off, and the guy took it the rest of the way. He had one other nice pass, but other than that, the Steelers defense kind of did all the work. They had a 1st and 10 from the Bengals 14-yard line, scored a few plays later, and were kind of in cruise control that whole night. Browning just was getting harassed it seemed like every drop back. Even if he wasn't hit or he wasn't sacked, he was still rushed there a lot. And we were talking during the game, the guy doesn't have a strong arm at all. So if he can't step into his throws, they just are not on target. He's got a lot of good timing with his receivers, but if he can't get that, he can't do well. And boy, the Steelers came away with not only a cover, but an upset win that I don't think many people around the country expected.
Yeah, I mean, I actually liked Pittsburgh at +3, especially once I heard Jamar Chase was out. It's a huge loss for Cincinnati. But yeah, the story of the game, and everybody talks about Rudolph, but it was the Steelers' front seven just dominated. Since he couldn't get anything going on the ground, that's really how they've had a lot of success the last few weeks during this winning streak has been able to run the ball. And I mean, Browning still put up some pretty big stats, but just too many sacks, too many pressures. Huge win for Pittsburgh. I mean, of course, they looked dead in the water. All of a sudden now I was looking at the playoff projections this morning. If they can somehow win out their last two, they're about 85% to make the playoffs, which is pretty wild. They do have a couple tough games at Seattle and at Baltimore to finish up. But yeah, nice win for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, man, everybody can say what they want about Tomlin. As somebody who's not a Steelers fan, I don't care about the team, what happens to them. Just from an outsider's point of view, I think he gets a lot more hate from Steelers fans than he should. I can name about probably 27 franchises that would love to have the problems, the quote problems that the Steelers have, and Mike Tomlin. He's only won a handful of playoff games over the last however many years, but the guy still finds ways to win. He still gets his guys up. I mean, that's such an underrated skill for a coach, getting your guys to play for you. He has to be one of the best in the NFL that does that. Every week you see his guys, they don't ever quit. A home game against a division opponent late in the season, they're a 500 team, and they go out, they show that their defense is still something to contend with. But like you said, traveling to Seattle is a tough place to go, the hardest place to play offense from a cadence point of view. And then you're going to have to go to Baltimore. We'll see if Baltimore needs that game. We're going to talk about that Baltimore 49ers game coming up, but definitely wanted to touch on that Steelers game. I thought that the defense looked great. And if they can play like that, create turnovers, give the offense the ball deep in their opponent's territory, I mean, Rudolph's not going to have to do much. And that's kind of what they have to do to win games is their quarterbacks they can't really put the team on their back. And other than this game, I'd say the rest of the Steelers games that we've watched since Pickett's been out, if anything, you kind of see the value in Pickett and who he is as a quarterback, because Trubisky looked awful. I mean, I have not seen that guy ever look that bad in his whole career, but we'll see what happens from there. Do you see Pickett coming back and sticking with this team long term?
Well, I mean, even short term, it's going to be a question because word is he's probably going to be ready to play next week. And then after Rudolph has this performance, what are you going to do? So reporters asked Tomlin after the game yesterday, what's the QB situation going to look like next week? And he declined to give an answer. He said he'd have to look at it. There was news came out this week, even before this win, that the Steelers are looking to extend Tomlin. So word looks like it might be a little hairy going forward with Tomlin, but according to the sources inside the organization, they're still happy with him. They're looking to extend them. So, yeah, but they'll have to figure out the quarterback situation for next year. And, of course, the offensive coordinator situation. They really need to nail their hire at OC. I mean, I really hope they don't just promote from within and go with business as usual. I'd really love them to hire a strong, experienced coordinator from outside the organization to kind of revamp the offense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Matt Canada didn't work out. I don't know if the team's played any better or worse since then. They kind of been the same team, if you ask me. It'll be interesting to see what they do. You know, if Tomlin had lost these last 3 games, then who knows? It might be a different story. But if he wins the next 2 and they finish 10-7 and make the playoffs, it's tough to get rid of the guy and not continue on with him. But
even just one of the two, it'll extend the infamous no losing record streak. So.
It's so crazy, yeah. That
It
every
is.
time you think, how many years has he been, just a game off of losing that
Yeah,
streak? I mean, they've been
a lot.
8-8, and last year 8-8-1 2 years ago when we extended to 17 games. I know a lot of Steelers fans. Well, we'll find out. You can't go 8-8 when you have 17 games, and the first year they go 8-8-1. It'll be funny to see. It'll be funny as far as when it does finally happen. It'll be because of that 17th game. So we'll see what happens with them. Just wanted to touch on that. Let's start into today's games. Let's start with the Cleveland game. Browns are at Houston. In Houston, giving the Texans 3 points. It's the Texans +3 at home versus Cleveland. Both teams fighting for a playoff spot. You've got C.J. Stroud out. You've got Nico Collins coming back. You've got Cashman out for the Texans, and Tank is out as well. I think for the Browns, Joel Bitonio is questionable. Okoronkwo is questionable, and they've got a ton of other injuries all around that team. So you got a couple teams with a bunch of injuries, including their quarterbacks. I don't know about you, but we were talking a little bit earlier. This is a good spot for the Texans as far as they're playing at home this late in the season in the playoff race. But at the same time, this Cleveland defense is just going to harass them like crazy. I don't see, like you said when we first started talking before we went live, you don't see how Houston's going to score many points today.
Right. Yeah, it's Case Keenum in there for Stroud, which, of course, is a huge – guy's been around forever. He's usually not going to stink up the place, but he has a limited ceiling, of course, getting up there in age. And, yeah, the Houston O-line is just not really good. They struggle to protect at times, and the Cleveland defensive front, of course, is just ferocious. Hard to see Houston have much success offensively. They're out without Will Anderson today as well, their first-round pick defensive edge rusher. So, yeah, another injury for the Browns is Bitonio. He got hurt during the game last week, left the game. He's questionable. Looked like he practiced Friday, but we should hear news on him as the inactives come up here.
Yeah, I mean, Keenum, he's a veteran journeyman backup quarterback. He had a good year 1 year in Minnesota, took them to the playoffs. They won that crazy game over the Saints on the last play of the game on that catch along the sidelines. They have a name for it there in Minnesota. I can't remember what they call that game, but that got him a nice deal in Denver. He signed a big contract, but he only lasted there a year, and then he's been bouncing around as a backup ever since then. And he started his career with Houston. It's nice to see him round back around down there because the guy, I'll give him credit for one thing. He's a gunslinger. He's not afraid to take a chance. He'll go deep. He's not a dink and dunk backup, and when a guy's not afraid like that, if things are clicking, then they can do some damage. But I just don't see how they're going to block this front seven from Cleveland. I really don't see how I don't know how anybody on that line is going to be able to match up with Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's a nightmare for anybody at all. Stroud was playing. I'd give him a little bit better chance. Sucks he's hurt. I mean, this will be the second week in a row with concussion. I remember when it happened, I texted you during the game. I mean, it was pretty bad. He went down and slammed his head pretty severely on the turf, so you could tell it was going to be likely to be a bad concussion. But word is he'll be back next week. But Houston's still right in it. I mean, it's a big game for them, big game for Cleveland. I mean, playoff implications both ways, so be a fun one to watch.
Yes, it will. We're coming down to the wire here for these playoff spots, and both conferences have teams that are hovering around 500 or just over 500. So every game is going to count. Hoping, and praying for some more competitive, exciting games coming up. Because this year has just been a dud for that. The most boring year that I can ever remember watching the NFL. We've talked about that a couple times. We could talk about that later on today on the reasons why. But let's head into some of our official picks here. We only have 4 this week because of all the quarterback injuries, and a lot of these lines from Vegas are very sharp. So there just isn't much value in a lot of these games. But we have 4 here. So we're going to start with the Tennessee Titans. They're at home. Ryan Tannehill is back under center. Will Levis is out with an ankle injury. He's got a high ankle sprain. Tannehill's been out for 8 weeks now. He got hurt. Levis came in, and then they just stuck with him. Levis hasn't played bad. He's played okay for a rookie, and he's got a nice connection with DeAndre Hopkins down there. But Tannehill's coming back. We were talking. He's going to be playing for his next contract. So he's going to be a guy that, in my opinion, is going to come out gunslinging, wanting to do whatever he can to get this win. Tennessee is always tough at home. Vrabel's teams, I don't care what their record is. They all come out and throw haymakers. They'll swing for the fences. They're going to try to win every game. And the system likes Tennessee. +3 here. Seattle coming off a Monday night big win over Philly with backup quarterback Drew Lock with that last final drive where he just, the guy's got a lot of talent. He's got the arm talent. He's got the pedigree. He had a great college career, and it's not his physical traits. If you were standing next to the guy, you'd be like, yeah, that's an NFL quarterback right there. But he just doesn't put together in the games really. But he did this week. They came home with a win, and I think maybe they're getting a little bit too much credit for that.
Yeah, Locke definitely has the physical tools. I mean, he's got a big arm, can move around well. Might have been the case of him just being thrown in the fire a little bit too early in his career in Denver, but played well last week. Seattle's got weapons on offense. I mean, their wide receivers are solid as they come with Metcalf and Lockett. Kenneth Walker, I really like him as a running back. He looked like he was questionable, but looking more like probable. But I'm with you. I think Tennessee getting 3 here is a good bit of value. Seattle coming off a short week. They just played on Monday night, emotional win down to the last second against Philadelphia on Monday, and then coming short week, having to travel halfway across the country to Tennessee. Titans always play tough at home. Have they even lost this year at home once? I don't believe so.
I think they lost 1 game, and it was
one.
I thought they lost 1 really close game.
Yeah. Seattle got some injuries in the secondary. The rookie Weatherspoon, top 5 pick last year, good rookie. He's not going to play. It looks like he's pretty doubtful. Jamal Adams out. So be interesting to see with Tannehill. You're right. He's probably playing for his next job. Hard to see anybody giving him a starter contract going forward. We'll see, but he'll at least be a backup. He's talented enough where probably feel better with him starting today than Levis, even though I do like what Levis has shown. But, I don't think it's much of a downgrade today. So I agree with the system in this one. Tennessee +3, good pick.
Yeah, they lost to Indy at home by, I think, 6, and then they lost in overtime to Houston at home. But like you said, they're going to fight. And Seattle, Geno Smith is starting today. We were just mentioning Locke because of the Monday night game.
Right.
But Geno Smith will be back. Obviously, he's the better choice for them. But at the same time, this Tennessee team is going to fight. And when they're at home, they come to play. So we're officially taking the Tennessee Titans +3 at home versus Seattle. All right, the next game here, probably the one that kind of, boy, it's one that I had a lot of trouble with. The numbers say to take the away team here, but I know everybody loves the home team. It is the Dallas Cowboys +2.5 at the Miami Dolphins. You got 2 great offenses here, really 2 really good teams, but Miami, when they play a team with a winning record, they don't do well. In Dallas, when they play away from Dallas, they don't do well. So really, you've got both of the teams' kryptonites kind of going at it. Dallas should not be, getting – if this was 3 points, I would say you got to take Dallas. At 2.5, it's a little iffy, but the system does like this pick. That Dallas team has got a lot of potential on offense to do a lot of damage, but they do have a couple of injuries. Tyron Smith is out. He's out this game. That's a huge loss for them. And then Zach Martin is questionable right now. But Miami's got a ton of injuries of their own. I know Tyreek Hill is questionable. They've lost several linemen. So last week they were absolutely decimated with injuries, and they win 30-0. Tyreek Hill didn't play, and they scored 30 points. So anybody who thinks Tyreek Hill deserves the MVP over Brock Purdy, I'm sorry, that was the nail in the coffin for me, because you scored 30 points without the guy against a really good Jets defense. He's not as important as a quarterback. I'm just throwing that out there. But they played great against the Jets here. Dallas got absolutely just kind of manhandled in Buffalo. I mean, it could have been closer if a couple plays went their way, but they just did not look good at all. I'm taking Dallas plus 2.5 here, and I'm a little bit chicken. I might buy the hook, but I'm definitely going with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you to buy the hook. It's a huge difference between 3 and 2.5. Yeah, I wonder where the public betting is at on this. You would think after Dallas totally, it's got dominated last week, that so many people are going to be on Miami this week, but I don't know. It's a tough one for me to say. The offensive line injuries for Dallas is huge. I mean, Tyron Smith out. He's one of the best tackles in the NFL. Martin's looking more probable, but he's questionable as well. Dallas also has defensive tackle Hankins out, plays pretty well for him. They've been using their backup Smith from Michigan, and according to their fans, like, he's just looking awful, getting blown off the ball. That's really with Buffalo. I mean, they just bullied them. They didn't even really have to pass much. They just ran it. Not sure if Miami can do that. I think Miami's a little bit better matchup for Dallas. Dallas gets after the quarterback. I mean, there's no question about that. Tua's going to be under siege today. They have a good system of getting the ball out quick. I mean, you don't see Tua back there patting the ball and taking his time. I mean, he's usually drop back, get the ball out quick, a rhythm timing offense. So should be a lot of points. If it was 3, I would certainly love or Dallas. 2.5. We'll see.
Yeah, it's so with Miami -2, the cash 85% is on Dallas and 53% of the tickets, and the money line 62% of the cash is on the Dolphins, but 61% of the tickets, and that's no surprise because Dallas is the most popular NFL team in the country. They are the TV networks darling. They all love the Cowboys. They want to put them on. If you ever see a Cowboys game on and they're blowing a team out, and you're screaming at the TV, just turn to the other game. Why is this game on? They're not going to turn the game to a close game unless it's like a really important game. They're not cutting out of the Cowboys game because people watch that game, and the networks make money off of advertisers when the Cowboys are playing. So no surprise on the percentages there, but it looks like it's a couple hurt teams. Who needs it more? Who wants it more? I mean, Dallas now has the lead there in that NFC East with the tiebreakers, but they've got to win because I think if both teams win out, then Philly will end up getting the tiebreakers because they play more NFC teams here coming up to end the season. So this is a really big game for both teams. I just feel like Tyron Smith out is a huge loss for them. That's big. If he was healthy, I mean, that might almost sway it just because he's makes that big of a difference on the offensive line. But I just feel like they're more talented overall from a top to bottom team. Yeah, Miami's fast. They're very, very fast, but I don't think that they have the Dallas defense is much better, if you ask me. And if they can get to Tua, I just feel like they have a better overall team to get this win and cover if not, lose by less than a field goal is not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, it's a big game for both teams. Buffalo winning last night. I mean, they're right on Miami's heels now. So Miami has a tough schedule down the stretch, including this game. So if they can lose one more and Buffalo wins out, Buffalo would win the division. So, I mean, it's a huge game for both teams. You're right. I think defensively, ask me which defense to take. It's Dallas all day long. I mean, their defense is really good. Offense is about a push. BC, if Dallas can win a tough game away from home, and they haven't been able to do it yet, so that'll be the test for them. And Miami, just to beat a tough team in general. I mean, I don't think they've really beaten a single quality team yet this year. So big game for both teams for sure.
Yes, it is. That'll be a fun, hopefully a fun one to watch. So that'll be our official pick here, second official pick. We're taking the Cowboys plus 2.5 at the Dolphins. All right, the third game here of the four that we're going to take as official picks, the Baltimore Ravens plus 6 now at the San Francisco 49ers on a Christmas night special. The Ravens and 49ers, it's a rematch of Super Bowl 11 years ago. These are two well-coached teams, two talented teams, and two teams that both need to win. I would say probably Baltimore probably needs a little bit more right now because the 49ers have essentially a 2-game lead because they are 1 game up on both Philly and Dallas, but they have wins over both. So they have the tiebreaker there. Probably is a little bit more meaningful to Baltimore. I seen Baltimore said they were feeling disrespected to be the dogs. I mean, come on, man. I mean, I know you got to make up fake things to get fired up about in the NFL. Tom Brady remembers stuff that happened 18 years prior before he would play a game just to get all fired up about it. Worked for him. But, I mean, come on, you're an underdog playing on the road, West Coast against the team with the best record in the league that is the consensus #1 team in the NFL. I'm not sure why you would feel disrespected, but by no means does that mean that this is a for sure win or cover for the 49ers. This Baltimore team does one thing very well. They run the ball. 49ers have been struggling against the run. They've had some interior defensive linemen out. Eric Armstead is out again, I believe, for the third straight week. And Javon Hargrave is now questionable. And without those two guys in the middle there, Baltimore could have some success running the ball, and they could definitely come away with a win.
Yeah, that's huge injury-wise. Hargrave looking questionable. He might play, but, yeah, Armstead's huge. I mean, he's a massive run stopper, athletic guy. Baltimore probably not disrespected that they're underdog in general, but getting 6 points. I mean, they're a proud team. 6 points is a lot. Hard to bet against San Francisco right now, though, honestly. I mean, they're just rolling. Just an embarrassment of riches. I was looking at Pro Football Focus ratings this morning. I mean, they got guys at the top of the ratings just all over the place. I mean, Kittle is #1 tight end, McCaffrey #2, Ayuk #2, Trent Williams #2. Funny thing, though, I was looking at the quarterback ratings, and you and I talked about this before, is they actually have Brock Purdy, the #1 rated running quarterback, run grade in the NFL. You know, their grade isn't volume based,
right?
It's more quality. So they're saying when he takes off and runs, they have him as the best running quarterback in the NFL. I wonder if Lamar Jackson got word of that. Maybe he can be fired up over that instead.
I hope nobody mistakes that as meaning that he is the best runner in quarterback of the NFL. He just has the best grade. He doesn't do it very often, but when he does, I'll tell you, he's a lot quicker than you would expect. He's gotten out of a lot of sacks this year. He just has a good feel for the pocket. He ducks when guys are coming up high, and I seen him get out of some stuff this year where my eyes are kind of opening up like, whoa, where did that come from? So he's probably only actually ran the ball a dozen times, 20 times at the most, maybe, but he does do well when he runs. But I believe he's probably top 5 or top 6 graded quarterback, and Lamar Jackson is probably the top 3, something. They're both probably in the top 5 or 6. But I do believe that the 49ers are more talented overall, especially on offense. Outside of their best offensive player for Baltimore, he's out. Outside of the tight end position, they really don't have much. Isaiah Likely's been stepping up. I know when they drafted that kid, they thought really highly of him. He was an undersized tight end, but a very athletic kid, just a little bit too small to be playing tight end, but he seems to be growing in his role. Now that Andrews is out, I know Jackson's going to him a lot more, but 49ers are going to have to do what they did against Philly and stay disciplined against the run. They were not letting Jalen Hurts run up the middle. And they said, okay, if you want to run, head to the outside. And it just forced a lot shorter runs. And Hurts was holding the ball forever in that game. The 49ers were playing great defense on those receivers, and they were daring him to run the ball. I mean, Lamar Jackson's faster than Jalen Hurts, so I don't know if they can be that inviting, and because he could get to the outside and make some damage, but they're going to have to keep him bottled up. And the offensive line is going to have to do their job. We've talked about this every week now, that their offensive line outside of Trent Williams is not very good, and they're going to have to hold up in there and give Purdy time. But, man, I don't know. This offense hasn't struggled yet this season.
Yeah, they're just humming right now. Don't really seem to have too many weaknesses, like you said. Maybe the O line outside of Williams, but they're holding their own. I mean, they're playing well enough. Um, yeah, Baltimore. I don't know. Getting 6 points seems like a bit much to me, but honestly, it's hard to bet against San Francisco playing at home Monday night. Talk about all the crappy games the NFL gives us for prime time. They finally gave us a good one for Christmas night, game of the week. Probably maybe
Right.
the very two best teams in the league. I mean, AFC,
Right.
NFC could be a Super Bowl preview.
Yeah, I mean that's how they're rated. I've looked at a bunch of the different ratings, and it's 1 and 2 everywhere. I'm not sure who would have the number 2 slot outside of Baltimore. Who else has an argument? I don't see anybody that really has an argument outside of Baltimore. I mean, Philly's
Miami.
down right now. Dallas is playing down right now. Kansas City hasn't been the same team. That Kadarius Toney's cost them how many stinking wins this year. Buffalo. You don't know what team you're going to get with Buffalo. For them to only win that game against that Chargers team by 2 points last night, just if you're a Bills fan, I can't imagine you're punching holes in your wall because when are these guys just decide when they're going to show up, and they didn't last night. It was definitely a trap game, but I wouldn't think at this point in the season anything would be a trap game for them. But I would have Baltimore rated ahead of them for sure. So we're gonna go with Baltimore officially +6 at San Francisco tomorrow night versus the 49ers. A huge game for both teams. It means a lot more to Baltimore most likely than it does San Francisco, but playing at home, San Francisco plays well. So that is the third pick of the 4 for us here officially from our system picks. And the last one is one that we kind of struggled with whether or not to count this, whether or not to go with this. But we are going to officially take the Indianapolis Colts +3 at the Atlanta Falcons. Two pretty similar, evenly matched teams here as far as their grades go, their scoring goes, as far as the numbers go. Atlanta has blown a couple of games, though, as of late, by just stupid things happening. Last week, one of our picks was taking Atlanta minus, I believe, 3 at Carolina. They were up 1. They were inside the 15-yard line, I believe. There was, a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in the game. They were driving, and Desmond Ridder throws an interception on the 2-yard line. Carolina drives all the way down, kicks a field goal, and wins as time expires. That was a frustrating bad beat loss right there. I mean, there's a lot worse beats than that, but to have the ball inside the red zone against your opponent, you're up 1 with a chance to kick a field goal, a cover for that to happen. I don't know if that's a bad beat as much as it is bad quarterback play.
Yeah, it wasn't just your run-of-the-mill bad throw. It was a terrible decision. He was rolling out, should have just thrown it away, just forced it right into traffic. I mean, just bonehead rookie mistake. So, yeah, Ritter's going to be out today. That play probably contributed to them benching Ridder. He's been benched at least once, maybe twice this year. I mean, they kind of go back and forth now with Taylor Heineke. So they did announce Heineke's going to start this week. So that was kind of our debate as whether we should still keep it as a system play with the quarterback change. Usually we like to have a set number of games of quarterback data. But I think Ridder to Heineke, probably a little bit of an upgrade for Atlanta, but not too much. I mean, Heineke kind of is what he is. Indy does have some injuries. They got Pittman, who took that vicious hit against the Steelers a couple weeks ago. He's still out. But Jonathan Taylor looks like he's going to be back, so it'll be a boost to their run game getting him back. I mean, getting 3 with almost anybody against Atlanta seems like a pretty solid bet. I mean, they're a decent team, like to run the ball. They're not terrible, but they're hardly ever going to blow people out and win by margin. Huge game for Indy. They're right in it in the wild card race. So, yeah, Indy +3 seems like a solid bet.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew's not, blowing anybody away with his play. He'll have moments, when he's okay, and he'll have moments when he stinks. But I just think they're a more talented team overall. They have defenders that play well. Their offensive line isn't a bad team. Taylor is a great running back, and when he gets hot, he can really do some damage. The one thing Atlanta does well is they run the ball well, so the opposing team doesn't have the ball as much to score, but Indy's created some turnovers this season. They've got some real quality wins on their resume too. They beat Cleveland, they beat Baltimore, they beat, I believe, Pittsburgh too, right?
He did.
Yeah. So I mean, they've got some good wins on their resume. Atlanta's in the worst division in the NFL. They're playing to win that division. What you've got, the Bucks at 7-7, the Falcons at 6-8, and the Saints at 7-8. So really, one of those teams could win. So they're still playing for the division. But I just think Indy is probably the better team here, and they're fighting for their playoff lives too. So that will be the final pick of our 4 system picks. So we will conclude with those, but we're going to go into some other talk here. One game that we really thought about taking, but the line moved and it made it a no-go. Jacksonville was getting 1.5 at the beginning of the week, which is where we bet it earlier in the week. But right now, today, we can't recommend that because they're now -1 at Tampa. And the system has these two teams as just almost even. It does have the Jags as just about a point better, but they're giving a point. So that would be, there's no value there for them. But I was looking, as I was looking up the injuries and whatnot from this game, there was a news article that popped up that said there's mutual interest between Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers to sign him back. And I was checking out his stats. He's got 3,300 yards. He's completing 63.5% of his passes, 24 touchdowns, and 8 picks. He's averaging 240 yards a game, giving you almost 2 touchdowns and just less than about a half an interception a game. I would imagine both sides are pretty happy with his play. He's played just tough football. If you watch those games, man, he's laid himself out for some first downs. And there's been a couple times I've seen some defensive linemen jump on his back, and he carried the guy for a yard or two trying to get the first down. That's a dude that will fight for you. I think the Bucs kind of like his attitude. He's grading about middle of the pack, which is probably where he is. But with those receivers, you can't really be upset with what he's done this year if you're a Bucs fan, if you ask me.
Yeah, as good as you can expect, really. I mean, he kind of is what he is as well. He's just middling quarterback. I mean, you can do a lot worse. You can certainly do a lot worse. He's limited. I don't think he's ever going to be like a top tier guy. I mean, I can understand Cleveland. Really, some of their fans have strong opinions with Mayfield, but he's solid. I don't know if I would lock him up as like a sure thing, guaranteed starter next year. He'll get you about what they are right now, 6-8 wins or so. He's not going to be awful, but if I'm them, honestly, I would try to look to upgrade, at least with a young guy to develop behind them if they do go that route. But yeah, they're playing solid. Jacksonville, I mean, some of you guys might be surprised how Gary said we were going to take them if Jacksonville's getting 1.5, but now that they're laying a point, they're no play. Like, how much can 2 points really matter? But in this world, it does. I mean, those couple points like that just come into play more often than you think. The edges in this game of sports betting, it's small. I mean, when we say we like this team, I mean, we're really saying we like it. If it was a point or two less, we wouldn't like it. I mean, it's really that thin. It's razor thin. So yeah, system liked them at 1.5 by just a small margin. Now that they're -1, no play. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah, and to be honest, the Jags haven't played well lately, and the Bucs have. So those are the two things that you got one team going in one direction, one going in another. Lawrence he's battled through injury. You got to give him credit. The guy's he's played tough too, and he's a guy that hasn't hardly missed any action in his career. In fact, I don't think he's ever missed a start. I don't think. And he's battling with a high ankle sprain and a lot of other things going on with him. So you got 2 tough quarterbacks here, 2 Florida teams playing. I didn't see any weather notes from this. I don't know about you, but when you're in the South and it's the wintertime, you got to worry about rain. What's the weather look like in that game?
Yeah, it looks all green. No weather notes of any game, really. Looks like we got a nice clean Sunday. Not a single game stood out for even a little bit of weather, so should be clear there. It is a huge game for both teams as well. Jacksonville, we're looking like possible #1 seed in the AFC just a few weeks ago. Been downhill since. I mean, lost to Cleveland, lost again last week. Tampa Bay, like you said, still right in it for the NFC North race. So big game for both teams.
Yes, absolutely. But so we're not going to take a pick with that game because of that. But should be an intriguing one. That'll be one I'll be keeping an eye on for sure. And hey, for Baker Mayfield's sake, I hope he does get a contract there down in Tampa. I don't know what kind of a cap situation they have, but they've got guys they've got to pay. So I hope that situation doesn't get worse for him because he's kind of just playing right where he needs to play to get a contract. If he does much worse, he could be on the way out. But for this year, he's doing well. And if they do end up in the playoffs, I think that'll be a successful season for them. All right, so we're going to talk about some other games here that aren't system picks here, but they are intriguing. One that you and I talked about was the Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings. Detroit, I believe, is -3 right now. This is a big NFC North game. Both teams are still fighting for playoff spots. In fact, the Lions are fighting to climb up in the playoff rankings right now, and Minnesota's trying to hang on and stay relevant. They lost that heartbreaker to the Bengals last week in a game that they probably should have won 4 or 5 different times. So, but this, you look at these teams, you say, hey, Detroit's a better team. I'm taking Detroit, but you can't do that in division games, especially when it's this tight. And these guys played a tough, close game earlier in the season.
Yeah, the division games always throw a little extra wrinkle into it. Teams know each other so well, coaching staffs, the tendencies. It's kind of throws a wrench. It's also in Minnesota, hoping a division team can go on the road and win by more than 3 points. It's no matter who it is, it's always kind of dicey. Group we respect that puts out a best bet play every single week. Actually, liked Minnesota +3.5 is what it was earlier in the week. And some money has come in on Minnesota, and it's actually down to 2.5 at a few books. You can get Detroit -2.5. So I looked at this one a lot, and I just can't bring myself to back Minnesota with Mullins. I mean, they're good. They're a good team, but Detroit, when they're playing their best, I mean, they're just a little bit on a different level. Whenever they're playing at their best on offense, they look impressive at times. It's tough to what to make of Detroit. Can they really be a contender? Hard to really put them in that category yet. I mean, they're a playoff team, but whenever they're going to have to play someone like San Fran, they have a ceiling where they can play pretty good ball, but it's hard to really take them serious at this point as a true contender.
Yeah, they don't. They'll. Seems like certain teams they'll beat up the Lions. They'll. What was it? The Broncos a couple weeks ago. They
Yeah,
play
they
a
look,
team
look
where
good.
if they match up well with a team, they just seem to kind of bully them, but or just lay on the score and get some turnovers or whatnot. But then when they play a quality team like Baltimore, they are absolutely blown out of the. They shouldn't even have. They should have just forfeited the game. That's how ugly that game was. So they're a hard team to figure out. I was wrong, though. These teams haven't played. The close game I was thinking of was the Bears and Vikings game. These two played twice in the last 3 weeks. So they play today, and then they play in 2 weeks in the season finale, which, man, talk about a game that could mean something there. You have to wonder, what is this Minnesota team doing if Cousins stayed healthy? If he stayed healthy, if the wide receiver core stayed healthy, they could have really, they could have been mirroring that record or close to it that they had last year, where they won a bunch of games they shouldn't have. And this year they're losing a bunch of close games with key guys out. If you're a Vikings fan, you're probably a little heartbroken that you don't get to see the full potential of this team. But I'm not touching this game. This is just too many questions and what ifs for me. So I'm staying away here. But it is Detroit -3. So
Yeah, the Justin Jefferson injury has been huge for them too. I mean, he might be the most valuable non-quarterback in the league. I mean, having him out for most of the year, got to commend what Minnesota's done this year, really, with the injuries, and coach there, McConnell, done a pretty good job of holding things together. They're right there in the race. So if they had a little bit better quarterback situation, I would like it better. But Mullins, I mean, you saw him in San Francisco. What do you think of him? He started a few games out there for them.
I mean, Kyle Shanahan made Nick Mullins' numbers look great. I mean, his numbers are fantastic. In fact, I think for a while he had the NFL's all-time highest, every quarterback who had ever played in the NFL, the highest yards per attempt ever. I think that's what it was. Something like there was some stat like that he had. And there were some of the pundits around the NFL that would kept screaming, "Why is this guy not caught a contract? Because he's not very good. That's why. Because things were schemed up for him." And believe me, if he had the talent to start, the NFL would have found him a way to start. And he just had Kyle Shanahan has things schemed up for him. His numbers look good, but they didn't win with him. That was the difference. You know, you can hear people say, "Well, Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan's doing the same for Brock Purdy." He is, but Brock Purdy is winning games. Brock Purdy isn't putting the ball in harm's way. He's not throwing a terrible interception when you're driving to win the game, or, you know, when you're up 3. You know, those are the kind of things that Nick Mullins did. I mean, they've got a good offensive staff there. I would hope they don't put too much on his shoulders, but I wouldn't trust the guy. I tell you that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I mean, getting 3 at home, it's kind of tempting. Like I said, someone I really respect has their best bet is Minnesota this week, and I tried to get there and looked into it, and I just can't do it. I mean, if I really had to bet, my bet would be Detroit, really, playing the 2.5. If they play their best, they're just a better team than Minnesota, and they should win this game.
Yeah, I agree. So it's the Lions minus 2.5. We're not going to take a bet on that. Next game we're moving to here. Two, I don't know, teams that are, man, these are ugly teams. I can't think of another word. I'm trying to think of another word here. The Washington Commanders at the New York Jets. The Jets are 3-point favorites. You've got Washington with the 32nd ranked defense and the Jets with the 32nd ranked offense.
Awesome.
Something has to happen here. We were talking earlier in the week. I did some research. Teams that come off of a shutout loss in the last 5 seasons are 18-11 against the spread in the NFL. So if you were shut out the week before and you had a game the following week, the very next week, you covered 18 times out of 29. That's a pretty good clip there. But we were talking, and you said especially that it's really tough for you to lay 3 points with that Jets team. They just can't seem to move the ball. They had Wilson had a good game a couple of weeks ago. They won a game they shouldn't have won. I can't remember who they beat. And you're thinking, okay, well, maybe he's going to have a good end to the season. And then they go and play the Dolphins, who have a ton of injuries. They had, I think, 102 yards of total offense, get beat 30-0 without Tyreek Hill playing in that game. That Jets team is a dumpster fire, if you ask me. I read an article today that said Robert Saleh, there is no talk around that organization. The ownership, the front office have no intention of letting him go. So they like what he does on defense. It's just that atrocious offense. And, of course, we all know that offense was built for Aaron Rodgers this season. He cherry-picked his favorite receivers, brought them in. He got 4 plays into the season and blew out his Achilles tendon. So Wilson should not be even playing for this team right now. And he has, and it's been ugly. And we've had to suffer through, 5 primetime games with that guy this season? Something like that. You and I talk about it all the time, like, oh, my gosh, another Jets game on prime time. Like, why doesn't the NFL flex out of this? I was trying to talk myself into taking the Jets after a shutout loss, playing the worst defense in the NFL, but really the Washington offense can click sometimes. They can play well. I guess if I had a gun to my head, I would take the Jets -3, but I'm not putting any of my whole cold hard cash on this today.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So if you're betting them -3, they have to win by 4 or more points for you to win any money. I mean, that's not a good task for that offense. I mean, they're by far really statistically the worst offense in the league. Fewest points, I'm sure. Fewest touchdowns for sure. I mean, they're bad. I know Washington defense is bad too, but I mean, the Jets would probably struggle against Ohio State's defense. I mean, you really can't trust them to do a whole lot. I did watch a lot of that Washington game last week. We had that as one of our teaser legs, the best bet teaser. So we had the Rams, and beginning of the game, Rams just rolled over them. I mean, they had all kinds of success running and passing. Washington had a few defensive turnovers, which kept them in the game, let them hang around for a while. But down to down, Rams just marched up and down the field. So I think the Washington defense is pretty bad. Seems like they're checked out. I mean, it seems like Rivera's probably on his way out, and they're just playing out the string. But yeah, I just can't lay the points with the Jets. You do bring up a good point. how you said teams that are shut out the next week perform well. That really doesn't surprise me. We see it a lot where teams have like a super bad performance and then the next week play way better. I mean, these guys have a lot of pride. We saw it just yesterday. The Vegas Raiders week before totally blew the doors off the Chargers, gave up 60 points, just completely throttled. What did the Chargers do? Came within a point of beating Buffalo last night. So, I mean, if you wanted to bet the Jets, I can see some rationale, but I mean, I just can't. If it was a pick, I just can't bet them to beat somebody by 4 or more points just with their offense. Just can't do it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And you mentioned the Raiders. The Raiders 2 weeks ago lost a 3-0 game to the Vikings, and then came out the following week and scored 60 points. So it's just one of those things that if you've been doing this long enough, like we have, you see these kind of trends where when teams get blown way out, or they have a really poor offensive performance, they tend to come back the next week. They have, these are millionaires. These are guys who grew up their entire lives and usually on their college teams too, where they were the best athlete on the team. They were by far physically better than everyone else they've ever went against. And then they get to the NFL. That mindset doesn't leave. A lot of I bet you 75% of them guys, if you ask them who the best guy at their position is, they would say, I am. And so you got that kind of a mentality and someone really hands you your butt. I imagine if you're a millionaire and the only thing in the world that you have to worry about is your product on the field, you're telling yourself, I'm not letting that happen next week. And if you get a group of guys doing that, then you see things like what happened with the Raiders where they scored 60 points. So it'll be interesting to see if they do cover, to see if that trend, hitting at about a 60% clip. Let's see if it continues. But the official line is the New York Jets -3, and I'm about touching them, Bailey.
Yeah, a lot of that I think ties in too is the point spread will overreact to a real bad performance like that. The public sees one team just get totally blown out. Next week, the point spread just gets shaded a little bit too much. I mean, they overreact to one game. You can't really do that in this game. You have a season's worth of data points. You can't really overreact to what's happened in the last week or two. And that's what will happen a lot in these situations. It'll be overreaction. People will bet too much on the team that look bad to lose again, and it just gets shaded too far, and there's value on the other side.
I agree. So before we move on to our next game, we do have to mention to not bet more than you can lose. And if you feel like you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. There are resources provided to help you. All right, our next game, we're going to move on to just a couple more games here before we get to our best bets and teaser picks. We have the Arizona Cardinals heading to the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 4-point favorites. We were talking a couple of teams that are probably a little undervalued right now. Chicago coming within a dropped Hail Mary of beating Cleveland in Cleveland. And, boy, at that ball, Fields threw that was an amazing pass. I went back and looked at that, and he put a little bit of touch on that. He's got a big arm. That was a deep pass, but he kind of put it exactly where he needed to. 4 or 5 guys go up, it bounces off. He has a receiver on the ground. It hits him in the chest, the lower stomach area, and bounces right out. And I know every Cleveland fan saw that, and their heart dropped in their stomach and say, here we go, another Browns game. This is classic Browns. But for once, Cleveland, it did not. The ball bounced you away for once. And if you're a Bears fan, you got to be sick because they've been playing well lately. They really outplayed Cleveland for most of that game. But Cleveland was just too tough. They're just too tough along the offensive or the defensive line. And, Flacco's playing just well enough to get them the wins. But Arizona's coming in and, they put some points up on San Francisco last week. They had over 200 yards rushing. Got 2 good rushing teams here. I think this will be an entertaining game, honestly.
Yep. The Bears, I don't know if they outplayed the Browns, but they played them toe-to-toe. It was a close game. They were up 10 late in the game. Looked like they had it. Browns pulled it out. A lot of that was a couple of turnovers that put the Bears in good position. But Bears are a fun team to watch, man. I like watching Fields. He's fun. He moves around so good. Got a cannon arm. They're an underrated team. And that game last week, Chicago's front seven was really the story. Cleveland tried to do what they always do and run the ball, play bully ball. Chicago wasn't having it. I mean, their run defense and their front seven in general is certainly underrated. So I can see why they're laying 4 here, but Arizona as well is playing decent ball last week. I mean, we watched a lot of that game against San Fran, and early Arizona hung around. It was looking like Arizona might cover. We had San Fran in the game, so you had asked me last week, like, well, what can Arizona really do? And I told you that tight end McBride that they have,
Right.
He's a weapon, man. He's a good player. Murray seems to really like him. They're developing a good rapport. So yeah, Bears laying 4 seems like a bit much for them to really be laying that many to anybody, but yeah, underrated, fun little game.
Yeah, I think the matchup to watch here is that Bears run defense. They are one of the better run defenses in the league. Arizona likes to run the ball. 49ers had a couple of really important guys out of that defensive interior line. So if Arizona can't run the ball, I mean, Chicago could win by a couple touchdowns. But if they can get the run going or Murray can get moving around, who knows? It could be a shootout. That'll be a fun one to watch. I'll be interested to see what happens. And I'm really interested in the postseason here with Eberflus in Chicago. Are they going to keep that guy around? Are they going to get rid of him? They seem to be playing a lot better, and so does Fields. But I just don't know if he's going to get over the hump. They probably should move on from him. I don't know what else they could possibly see from him to keep him there. But Justin Fields is, I think, even though the wins and losses aren't coming, I think the guy is really evolving and getting better. And if he got with a good QB coach, head coach, I think he could really do something. But those chances, I don't know. If Chicago gets rid of him, brings in a younger guy to come in and coach this team, I really think that he could do something if the guy has the right kind of mindset for Justin Fields.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the more interesting offseason teams to follow. They're going to have a high pick, and then they got Carolina's pick from the trade in the draft last year. So they're going to have 2 very top of the draft picks and very QB rich draft this year. They're going to have their pick of guys. Going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, Fields, I agree. I like Fields a lot, and I think if they move on from him, someone's going to pick him up and give him a chance to start. He's just too talented to not have success. Guy's just so fast. I mean, he moves. Yeah. Like I said, I think he's probably the fastest quarterback in the league. Straight line speed, his acceleration, and his arm talent is just through the roof. So, but the thing is, Chicago, if they want to keep him, they're going to have to pay him. So yeah, they're going to have to make that decision where they could have a rookie quarterback and get the rookie contract for 3 or 4 years, or do they want to run it back with Fields and extend them and add a couple other guys like they need a wide receiver. I mean, Moore's pretty good. Fields could use some more weapons around him for sure. Been talk of Harrison Jr. from Ohio State possibly being a fit for them. Be awesome if they had Fields and Harrison Jr., both Ohio State guys. But yeah, they're definitely going to have some decisions to make with head coach and with that quarterback position.
Be interesting to see for sure. All right, 2 more games to go here. We've got the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, heading to Kansas City tomorrow night. One of the 3 tomorrow, I should say, one of the 3 Monday games we got. Heading to KC, the Raiders are getting 10.5 here in this AFC West showdown. The Chiefs, I believe, won by 14 points the first time that they played. Chiefs still battling to stay in the driver's seat and trying to climb up that AFC playoff picture there. We've seen the Chiefs they aren't the Chiefs on offense. They're still getting things done. They're not scoring points. They're just not scoring points like they used to because they just keep dropping the ball. I saw a statistic that said of all quarterbacks in the NFL, what quarterback has had the most costly drops in the NFL this season? And Patrick Mahomes was number 1 on that list. Yeah, I can't remember the exact points that it has cost the team, but I mean, Kadarius Toney has not only dropped balls with that offsides penalty. Mahomes doesn't. They last year, I know they won the Super Bowl, and Juju Smith-Schuster was their best guy. That was probably the floor. Like that receiving cast that they had last year is the floor, and with guys not able to step it up, even average, mediocre guys like Schuster, you don't have 3 of those guys this year. You've got like 1, maybe 2 at the most, and the rest of them are worse than that. They're not playing well, but can you see them covering this 10.5?
Yeah, I mean, they're the Chiefs playing at home. Vegas, they're susceptible to getting blown out. So, I mean, I think the line's pretty much what it should be. Casey does have some injuries. Tony, who you mentioned, he looks like he's out this week. So maybe a positive for them. Who knows? I mean, he's maddening. I saw a reel on Facebook the other day. It showed like the perfect Kadarius Toney clip, and it was him in college running a route like in practice, and he just like completely eviscerates the dude in the route, just like juke in and out of his cuts, and just was wide open, and then dropped the pass that was thrown to him. So kind of sums up how he is. I mean, he's got a lot of talent. He was a first-round pick, but Hardman's out, Sky Moore is out, so they're getting pretty darn thin at wide receiver. Rice should have a big week. I mean, he's about their only legit option at wide receiver right now. Scantling, you don't really see him get used too much, but Kelsey, even we talked about it a few weeks in a row, but it just seems like he's lost a bit of a step. He's still great, of course, but he's not quite what he was, athletically speaking, as he was even 3 or 4 years ago. We talk about how teams sometimes will come off a bad performance and look good the next week. Sometimes you see the opposite happen as well. Here with Vegas coming off that huge 60-point showing against the Chargers, might be a little bit going the opposite direction this week, where they might come out and be flat and not look as good.
Pierce is going to be, playing for his coaching job. He's going to be coaching for his coaching job and wanting his players to really come out for him. So it'll be interesting to see if the Raiders can win this game or cover that 10.5. We don't have a bet on that because it was too close to call. And our last game we're going to talk about is the Sunday night game. The New England Patriots are headed to Denver playing the Broncos. Broncos are 7.5-point favorites right now. I don't know there's not much to say about this game. Patriots offense stinks. Their defense is tough. Denver has played admirably this year after a really abysmal start. Russell Wilson leads the NFL in fourth quarter wins this season. Fourth quarter final drive or comeback wins. He's leading the NFL. I don't know, 7.5. I don't know if Denver's going to cover this or not. They could win by 7 and be comfortable the whole game. I don't know. I hope that this version of the Patriots never comes back.
Yeah, they've, as on top of just not being very talented, they've had a lot of injuries too. It hasn't been talked a lot, but I was looking at the injury reports today. I mean, they got a lot of guys on the injury report. Judon, Christian Gonzalez, rookie cornerback, Jabril Peppers, Juju, Ramondre Stevenson, Hunter Henry. He's been a big part of their offense. Hunter Henry at tight end. He's going to be out this week. So, I mean, they're really thin. Talk about Chicago with an interesting offseason. New England as well. Like, what are they going to do here with Belichick? Right. Is he going to be coming back? Are they going to move on? And whose decision is it going to be? What are they going to do at QB? I mean, they have to try to find a new QB. Looks like Jones, his time has expired. I mean, they've been rolling with Zappe. PFF has Zappe the second worst rated quarterback according to their grades right now. So, yeah, you want to bet New England on the road, even getting a touchdown. I mean, I just can't do it. The pure numbers, if you looked at just pure statistical numbers, you could probably find a way to find New England getting 7 here as being a good bet, but I just can't do it. I can't trust this team.
Me neither. I'm not touching this game, and I don't have anything more to say about it. So we're going to head into Bailey's best bet and his teaser pick. But again, we have to mention one more time, never bet more than you can afford to lose. And if you do feel like you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER for resources to help you. So we're heading here, last 2 minutes. Let's start with Bailey's best bet. Last week, he went with the Giants. It looked like a great bet, and they completely, totally crap the bed. DeVito just he was I don't know. He got hurt. He didn't play the whole game, I don't think. He was hurt sometime during the game. They just got outclassed, and he had a good little run, a 4-game run there, but it didn't work out. So who are you taking today as your best bet here in Week 16?
Yeah, that Giants game last week, of course, was my best bet, so I watched about every play. It wasn't so much DeVito. It was the offensive line. New Orleans front just absolutely swarmed him, almost every single drop back. Giants tried to run the ball like they usually do. Barkley had like 10 carries for 12 yards. I mean, their offensive line just got completely decimated. It was just a total loss, start to finish. That's a regrettable pick on there. Yeah. So this week, I was pretty torn on 2 games in particular. The runner-up is Tennessee. I mean, I like Tennessee getting 3 at home. that was in consideration. But for my official best bets, I'm actually going to go to Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
It's tough to lay 3 on the road like this against a decent Houston team, but I was examining the game, and I just don't see a path for Houston to have much success offensively. I think the Cleveland D is just going to smother them. That Chicago game last week, I mean, on paper, Chicago had some points, but it really came from turnovers that led to the Chicago drives. I mean, for the most part, Cleveland defense held them down. Houston defense is middling, average. I mean, they're decent. They have Will Anderson, the rookie. He's out today, which is a big loss for them. Hate to lay 3 on the road, but this year has been the year of the favorites. I mean, the favorites have done great this year compared to any year in recent history. I don't anticipate that trend switching late in the year. So, yeah, I'm going to go Cleveland -3 at Houston.
All right, folks. Cleveland -3 at the Texans. Bailey's best bet. And to close things out, we always give a teaser. I know you look through these. A teaser means you're getting extra points added to the game. You have to bet 2 teams at minimum, and we usually do the 6-point teaser. So what do you got this week?
Yeah, our teas hit last week, which was good. This week,
yes,
we are going to go with our first leg is going to be Indianapolis, which is one of our system plays. We already broke this game down, taking it from 3 up to 9. So you can get that's huge points getting up over a touchdown. So, yeah, like you said, you add 6 points to the spread. So it's going to be Indianapolis +9. I think Atlanta is not a team that's going to blow people out. Either way, this game should be pretty tight, low scoring. So getting 9 points in that game is huge. The other line we're going to take is San Francisco. So I know system liked Baltimore +6, but I think anytime right now where you can get San Francisco, you take that 6, it makes it a pick 'em. All they have to do is win the game at home. I think San Francisco is clearly right now the class of the NFL. They're playing the best. Great roster. You tell me all I need is San Francisco to win a game at home, even though Baltimore is a good team. I'm taking that all day. One thing we didn't mention earlier is that Baltimore rookie running back, that real fast. I couldn't think of his name. Real fast. Every time you watch him play, he kind of jumps off the screen. He's hurt. He's not going to play. I think he might be out for the year. Their backup running backs are kind of pedestrian. They got Edwards and Justice Hill, so that would be a hit to their running game. San Fran, a pick. Indy +9 is our teaser of the week.
All right, folks. Well, episode 4 coming to a close. We thanks everybody for tuning in. We're just about done with the regular season, but we are going to continue on with this show into the playoffs. So for Jim Bailey, I'm Gary Altizer. Thanks for tuning in to Cherry Pickers episode 4. We'll see you next time.
YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of Your Sports Network. For stories, stats, and more, go to ysnlive.com.